Hi, this is Namrata Heda, and in this presentation I'll talk about bryophytes, one of the major group of plants. Basically there are four major group of plants as bryophytes, seedless vascular plants, gymnosperms and angiosperms. Bryophytes include mosses, seedless vascular plants include ferns, gymnosperms include conifers, and angiosperms include flowering plants. Before going ahead, let's quickly understand the meaning of the terms sporophyte and gametophyte, and also what is meant by alternation of generation. Now, in animals, there is a fusion of sperm from male and egg from female to form a zygote. However, unlike animals, plants have two alternating life stages and hence is called alternation of generation. One stage is the sporophyte, which produces spores via meiosis. The spores undergo mitosis and develop into a gametophyte stage plant. The gametophytes produce either sperm or egg gametes, and the egg and the sperm cells unite and grow into another sporophyte. Let's start with bryophytes. The bryophytes are considered to be the most primitive of the plants. They are typically only found where water is readily available and never grow more than a few inches tall. What are the distinguishing characteristics of bryophytes? First, bryophytes lack a vascular system. There are no tree-sized bryophytes because water could never travel adequately from the roots to the very top. Bryophytes disperse through spores, not seeds. The gametophyte stage is dominant. The bryophytes are the only group of plants where the gametophyte stage is larger than the sporophyte stage. The only land plants with a dominant gametophyte. The sporophyte is parasitic on the gametophyte, as we can see from this diagram. So in this diagram, the upper is the sporophyte, which is a parasite on the gametophyte. Now this stems from the embryo being retained in the female sex organ of the gametophyte. The three divisions of bryophytes includes mosses, liverworts and hornworts. The mosses, that is Bryophyta, liverworts, that is Hepatochophyta, and hornworts, that is Anthoceratophyta. These three divisions are distinguished by sporangium or sporophyte variations and anatomical variations. Coming to the first group of bryophytes, that is mosses. Okay, before going ahead, I would just like to make clear that not everything called a moss is actually a bryophyte. Like Spanish moss is basically a flowering plant. Irish moss is a marine red algae. Riander moss is a lichen. And club mosses are primitive vascular plants. Okay, so coming to mosses, which are bryophytes, let's have a look at the characteristics. So first they have radial symmetry. That means the gametophyte has a stem-like axis with spirally arranged leaves, which are properly called phyllodes. So the mosses attach to their substrate with multicellular rhizoids. So they may be erect or prostrate. That means the axis is along the ground. The most leaves have costa or midrib. Mosses are found in a range of habitats, although moist and shady habitats are more common. Some mosses are also found on rocks and in arid locations. Most water absorption is from the surface of the moss plant, surface cells of the moss plant. Like most bryophytes, mosses can desiccate or dehydrate for long periods without permanent damage. So this is a diagram of a typical moss plant. The leafy green plants near the bottom of the photo, it represents the gametophyte stage of the plant life cycle. The gametophyte plants are the dominant phase of the moss life cycle, but the plants are non-vascular and they lack true roots and leaves. In general, mosses are limited in size to no more than a few inches, since water must be drawn up by simple capillary action. So coming to the life cycle of a typical moss. The dominant and the obvious state in the moss life cycle is the leafy green gametophyte, here represented by number 1. It is the moss plant that one will encounter on forest floors and other moist habitats. This haploid plant is multicellular but non-vascular, so it cannot have true roots, stems and leaves. However, the plant does have cellular rhizoids that anchor it to the soil or other substrate. It also has a central stem-like stalk and also leaf-like organs. So the sex organs are located at the apex of the plant, and it consists of archegonia containing an egg, here represented by number 2A, and antheridia, here represented by number 2B, which are packed with sperm cells. Now since the gametophyte plant is already haploid, the gametes, that is the egg and the sperm, are produced by simple mitosis. Now the fertilization, it requires a drop of water that will permit sperm cells to swim from the antheridium to the archegonium. The fact that the non-vascular gametophytes require a moist environment and that free water is required for fertilization essentially limits bryophytes to environments that are at least seasonally wet. Now, once the egg is fertilized, it is now a diploid zygote, here shown by number 3, which is embedded in the haploid archegonium at the top of the gametophyte plant. The diploid zygote develops into a simple embryo that grows into the mature sporophyte emerging from the top of the gametophyte plants, here shown by number 4. Early in its development, the sporophyte is typically green, but by the time it is mature, it is usually non-photosynthetic and dependent on the gametophyte for water and nutrients. The sporophyte has 3 parts: a bulbous foot anchored in the old archegonium, it has a stalk and a capsule. So meiosis occurs in the mature capsule producing 4 haploid spores, here shown by number 5, and these 4 haploid spores is for each cell that divides. Their spores are dispersed by air, and if they land on a moist substrate, they will produce a filamentous algal-like structure called protonema, here shown by number 6. The gametophyte plants thus develop from the delicate protonema, and this way it completes the life cycle. Now coming to another group of the bryophytes, which is liverworts. So they have the following characteristics. They may have a cuticle, they have flattened growth which form often prostrate, they have unicellular rhizoids on lower surface, the upper surface is smooth with pores for gas exchange, the sporophyte sporangium or capsule is simple, and lastly the spores are released by hygroscopic elaters, that is hairs. So basically there are 2 types of liverworts, the thallose and leafy. Coming to the characteristics of thallose, so as the name suggests, it's the strong dorsal ventral flattening forms a thallose, that is the sheet-like shape, about 30 cells thick. Air pores and gas exchange chambers on the dorsal or the upper surface, apical meristems, dichotomous branching, they often make conspicuous lobes, and generally heterothallic, that is the sexes are on separate plants. Now coming to another group, that is leafy liverworts, where the plant body is along an axis with the leaves overlapping in pairs along the axis. So it is usually flattened but not thallose. The leaves are 2 or 3. It is lobed, 1 or 2 cells thick, and they lack a midrib. Leafy liverworts are usually mistaken for mosses. So coming to the life cycle of a typical liverwort. In the early spring, as the amount of daylight increases and the temperature rises, liverworts start to grow a long stem with a ball-shaped end to it. This ball will gradually turn black or brown and eventually it will burst open. The ball is called a spore case or sporangium. Now, when the spore case bursts open, it releases thousands of microscopic spores into the air. The liverworts produce spores to be carried in the air currents. When the spore lands on the soil, if the conditions are suitable, it will germinate and grow, and it will grow into a new liverwort plant. The spore case, which grows out of the liverwort, is the product of fertilization. One part of the liverwort's thallus produces sperm cell. On the other part of the thallus, egg is produced. So the sperm cells swim across the surface of the liverwort in a film of water. This explains why liverworts need to be near or covered in water a large part of the time. Without water, they just cannot reproduce. So that the sperm cells can find the egg cells, they are attracted to the egg cells by chemicals. Coming to the last group, that is the hornworts. They have rounded, small thallus-like gametophytes, which are found in moist shaded soils. Hornworts, they just have one chloroplast per cell, which is unique among the true plants. However, one chloroplast per cell is very common in algae. The gametophytes may be unisexual or bisexual. It depends on the species. The sporophyte is horn-shaped and grows from a basal sheath beneath the surface of the gametophyte. The sporophyte tip splits, releasing spores. The spores continue to mature for some time and the sporophyte continues to split. Thus, the life cycle is basically similar to that of the liverwort. So quickly, let's have a look at the comparison table of the three divisions of bryophytes. Coming to the first feature, gametophyte. So mosses have the gametophyte, which is erect stems and leaves. Liverworts have flat or leafy gametophyte, and hornworts have flat gametophyte. The stomata is present in mosses and hornworts. However, the liverworts don't have stomata, they have pores. The distinguished D-methionine is present in mosses and hornworts, not in liverworts. The hydroids and leptoids are again present in mosses or present only in mosses, not in liverworts or hornworts. Similarly, the axial gametophyte is in mosses, not in liverworts or neither in hornworts. The protonema is present in mosses. Generally, it is not present in liverworts, and in hornworts it is not at all present. The leaves in mosses is like one layer, spiral and with a midrib. In liverworts, the leaves is one layer and it is overlapping, and the hornworts don't have leaves. The chloroplast, mosses and liverworts have many chloroplasts. However, the hornworts have only one chloroplast, which is large. Symbiotic bacteria, mosses don't have, the liverworts have some, and the hornworts do have symbiotic bacteria. The cuticle is present in mosses and hornworts, not in liverworts. And determinate sporophyte is in mosses and liverworts, not in hornworts. So these are the references for the entire major group of plants. Thank you.